Always. Listen, love to just start off on, we just said it, I think it's 129,000 roughly, a coin, average price of 30,700, spent about $4 billion on it. One would anticipate if the price stays where it is, that's going to cause a significant write-down overall. At least your auditors may ask for that. You know, you've talked for years about the financial flexibility owning all that Bitcoin gives you. I wonder if you believe it also works in reverse.
No, I think it's been a net positive. We back-tested our strategy against every other alternative. And if you roll the clock back to August 10th of 2020 when we embarked on this journey, Bitcoin's performed 10x better than anything else. Gold's down 10%, NASDAQ is flat, Bitcoin is up 86% since that time. Over any time frame, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, Bitcoin's the best performing asset. I can't come up with a better idea.
You can't come up with a better idea. Does that mean that you would actually consider buying more at these prices?
Yeah, I think if you think about Bitcoin, if your time horizon is 1 month, it looks like a volatile risk asset. But if your time horizon is 10 years, it looks like a risk-off store of value asset. So the crossover point is 4 years. Nobody's ever lost money investing in Bitcoin for 4 years. And if you want a surrogate for the book value of the Bitcoin network, it would be the 4-year simple moving average. The simple moving average of Bitcoin over 4 years is about $21,685. Bitcoin's only touched that point a couple of times in its history, and those have always been great buying opportunities. Right. This is Bitcoin's on sale.
We're touching that. We're touching that price right now. It's funny you should mention it. So, is it a great buying opportunity?
Absolutely. Bitcoin's backed by the most powerful secure computer network in the world. If I gave you $100 billion, you can't reproduce it. And it's beyond a nation state attack or corporate attack. So once you understand that and the fact that it's a singularity, there's nothing like it in the world, then yeah, this is an ideal entry point to get into this thing.
All right, but you've also taken on debt in order to actually accrue that position, which does incur a certain amount of risk, doesn't it? I mean, I know, you've got, 6 and a 1.25 senior notes. They're, 2028. You've also got maturities that are out there, but there's concern in the market about margin calls, about collateral calls, certainly on some of this debt. Can you clarify for us exactly what those are under the covenants that you currently have and how they may impede your financial flexibility?
Yeah, sure. On a multi-billion-dollar balance sheet, we've only got a $200 million loan that we have to collateralize, and we're 10x over-collateralized on that right now. If the market traded down by a factor of 10, we've got cash and we generate cash flow. So this has all been, the margin call thing has much ado about nothing. It's just made me Twitter famous, so I appreciate that. And the Twitter trolls love to beat up on me because it gets them engagement. As for the company's balance sheet strategy in general, we borrowed $2.2 billion at a blended interest rate of 1.8% before interest rates doubled. Junk bond indexes from 426 basis points to 820 basis points. Mortgage rates have doubled. If you had a chance to grab $2 billion at 1.5% interest, it seems like a reasonable thing to do, and I'm glad we did it. Most of it is unsecured debt. 1.7 billion of it is unsecured. The $500 million comes due in 7 years after we borrowed the money. So we feel like we have a fortress balance sheet. We're comfortable, and the margin loan is well managed.
All right. Well, you mentioned being Twitter famous. I should add that you helped make me that as well, because we had an exchange in May of 2021 that was viewed 800,000 times. I want to play it for you, Michael, because it's instructive to get you to listen to it now and respond again to some of the same things that you discussed then. Take a listen. You do understand how much risk you're taking on here, don't you?
There's something solid there. I mean, Bitcoin is an idea that's worked. It might have been risky 10 years ago, but how long do you have to watch something spread like an idea virus before you decide that maybe it's going to be around for a while?
So again, you're comfortable taking this continued risk that we're talking about.
The biggest idea here is Bitcoin is the first and the only legitimate scarcity in the universe. Gold is not scarce. They just found 320,000 tons of gold in Uganda, which would double the supply of all gold mined since the beginning of mankind. So Bitcoin is the ideal commodity because you can't make any more of it. You can hold it forever, and it's programmable. And as I said before, if I gave you hundreds of billions of dollars, you can't recreate the network. So we see it as unique, as a long-term store of value, and it's a commodity and property. We couldn't do this strategy with a security like the S&P index. And it doesn't make any sense to do it with single-family homes, which have underperformed as well. So, yeah, we stand by the decision, and we think that 98% of the world doesn't understand the concept of a digital scarcity yet. But when they do, they're going to think it's a magical thing.
Michael, you mentioned this sort of 4-year average as a proxy for some kind of intrinsic value to the Bitcoin network. This thing's only existed for a dozen years, right? So, I mean, the 4-year value, it doesn't seem like something that has some kind of statistical, significance to it that we're going to rely on. I mean, maybe it's worked on the chart, but to me, to say that's something like book value is a little tough.
Well, the idea here is Bitcoin's a bank in cyberspace, and people buy Bitcoin to store their monetary energy forever. Microstrategy put $4 billion into the network, and we got less than 1% of the network, like 75 basis points or something. So if you think about how much money collectively has been invested by the Bitcoin hodlers, it's looking like the book value of the network's 450 billion or so. If you look at the daily deposits in the network day after day over the course of the last 4 years. And people tend to hold on to that forever. So I think it's a pretty good surrogate for the monetary energy invested in the network. And because it's unique and there's no other alternative network you can move it to, people that have put that money into the network are committed for the long term.
I guess the other question is, a lot of people have kind of looked at the price action and looked at the asset attributes of Bitcoin and other crypto and said that's really kind of just running in parallel to what's happening on the technology side. So maybe there's no right or wrong price for the coins, but there's something underlying it that's going to be the next version of the internet or whatever, and this is the raw material for it. You don't really seem to be in that camp. You just think this is the stuff to own because it has the scarcity properties.
Look, every commodity in the world has looked kind of good in a hyperinflation environment, but the dirty secret is you can make more oil, you can make more silver, you can make more gold, you can produce more corn, you can even create more real estate. Bitcoin's the only thing that looks like a commodity that is scarce and capped. And in the crypto world, look, the crypto world is 19,868 likely unregistered securities, one digital commodity called Bitcoin. And so this Bitcoin is unique because of its provenance and because of the Bitcoin mining network backing it and because of the protocol. There's nothing like it in the analog world, and there's nothing like it in the crypto world.
But to Mike's point about the short shelf life, Michael, and the limited history we have to go on, what do you say to those who argue it's been incubated in a long period of cheap money and stimulus and money growth and M2 growth, and that if that era ends, why should the price appreciation have anything to do with its short history?
The price is appreciating because there's a fundamental need for 8 billion people in the world to have a store of value of their economic energy that is beyond the reach of a corporation or a government and that cannot be debased by any individual institution or nation state. And in the 19th century, that dream was the gold dream. And in the 21st century, that dream is Bitcoin. And, it's not hard to go find someone on the street that wants to find a way to preserve their life savings without it being stolen by a bank or debased by a government. And so Bitcoin meets that need. Nothing else in the world meets that need.
Michael, you indicated earlier that this is a good opportunity to buy more. I think the company bought 4,827 coin in the first quarter. Do you have the cash flow to actually buy more now if you really wanted to?
Yeah, the company continues to generate cash flow, and from time to time, as we have excess cash, we're going to buy more. Our strategy is buy it and hold it and sweep our free cash flows into Bitcoin.
Yeah. What about buying your bonds? They trade at a pretty significant discount. That might actually get more for your bang for your buck.
Yeah, the securities market is very volatile, and I understand that. But our strategy is levered long Bitcoin. So our investors, our equity investors, our securities investors, they know that our strategy is to be long Bitcoin with responsible use of leverage. We intend to be transparent and committed to that strategy. That makes us predictable. And then all of our investors can decide whether they want to hedge their portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, when it comes to transparency, do you think, given the complexity to a certain extent of what's going on right now, you're able to provide that clarity? 20 years ago, I know you signed a consent decree to do that, to make sure that things were, not opaque at all at Microstrategy. Does this period we're in sort of make it more difficult to do that?
I don't think so. I think we've gone to great lengths to explain to our shareholders what our balance sheet looks like. They have access to all of the notes, the details on all of the notes that converts the senior secured note, the Silvergate loan. I think that's well understood. It's posted on our website. We have very detailed investor calls where we discuss that and answer questions.
And finally, to the extent that you are sort of a leader in terms of proselytizing for Bitcoin and followed, as you pointed out, very widely, I'm sure this interview will get a great deal of views long after it's been concluded. I mean, what do you want to tell those people who perhaps bought Bitcoin on margin because they've listened to you in the past and find themselves obviously in a deeply negative position, if not having to be completely wiped out in their account where they have the Bitcoin?
Look, if your time horizon is less than 4 years, you're a trader. I don't think you should trade anything unless you're a professional, you do it for a living. If your time horizon is more than 4 years, you can reasonably call yourself an investor, and the Bitcoin savers or maximalists have a time horizon of 10 years or longer. So my advice to anybody investing in Bitcoin is, unless you're a professional high-speed trader with proprietary software, you ought to hold it for at least 4 years. And if you want to focus on something, focus upon the 4-year simple moving average. It'll keep you from giving yourself anxiety. And that helps you to understand where we are in the life cycle of the asset.
So you don't have any anxiety either right now?
Look, if your time horizon is 3 months, you should hold the currency that you have your cost in. If you want to be an investor, you can invest in stocks, but that's got its own risk. If you've got money you want to save for a decade, then allocate that money to some scarce desirable property. Real estate might work for you, trophy assets might work for you, but Bitcoin is scarce desirable property available to everybody on the planet, and is the most egalitarian, utilitarian asset they have access to. So I'm proud to promote it.
Well, Michael, we're always happy to have you on and have these conversations. They're quite helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.